You are listening to Three Kitchens, a member of the Alberta Podcast Network. Locally grown, community supported. Join your hosts, Aaron Walker, Heather Dyer, and Sarah Somasundaram for some good old home cooking. This episode of Three Kitchens is brought to you by the Calgary Foundation, proudly supporting community needs for 65 years.
Whether someone is battling depression, fleeing domestic abuse, or worried about putting food on the table, it's times like these that inspire people to help others during a period of unprecedented needs. The Calgary Foundation is here to help. Through the generous support of donors, the Foundation offers a wide range of funding opportunities for organizations who share a common goal of building a healthy, giving, caring, and resilient community, one where everyone thrives.
Discover a wealth of resources at calgaryfoundation.org and learn more about the Calgary Foundation on their Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube channel. Did you hear that ad?
We did.
That's new.
It is. It's new. We're now a member of a network.
We here at Three Kitchens have joined the Alberta Podcast Network.
Hello, everyone. Welcome once again to Three Kitchens, our home cooking podcast. What's happening today?
What's happening? So, it's been a challenging week.
It sure
We've
has.
started, online hubs, so the kids are learning from home, and it's been a little difficult, but like a ray of sunshine. We found out that, I don't know if you guys remember, but I used to go on and on about this Japanese dollar store that I used to shop in Asia whenever I went there. And I would come back with a suitcase full of bowls and ceramic whatnots, and hoping they wouldn't break, right? And I would transport them back to Calgary. And so my kitchen is full of délicieux bowls and plates and cups and blah blahs. And we just found out that there was a Japanese dollar store that opened up in Calgary recently called Umomo, which I believe is the same company as Daiso, from what I read, but I can't confirm. I've spent a lot of money there already.
And you introduced me to it too, because we met there one day last week and had a nice little browse. We spent a lot of time, I think.
We did. We spent a lot of time. There are a lot of things. I almost feel like I shouldn't be sharing it with the listeners because I don't want to share any of that stuff with anyone else. I want it all.
They have,
but there's so much
stuff.
of it. There's so much of it.
It's quite big.
It's
huge.
A big
store. Yeah.
And it's got beautiful things, right?
Yes. Yeah. For such good prices.
I have to say, I mean, I was really disappointed I didn't get to go and waste a bunch of money and time there.
It's not a waste. Erin.
No, not a waste.
No. And you'll have
I say
chance.
that in an affectionate way. Like,
yes,
sometimes just going to the grocery store 2 hours gets away on me. And I'm like, how did I just spend 2 hours grocery shopping?
Yeah, you could easily spend an hour.
I could just snoop in the aisles forever. Yeah. And I remember my mom being like that, and it kind of drove me crazy because I'm kind of a to the point person. Like, I go in, I get what I need, and I get out. And so now I've turned into that person who like has to remind herself, like, you need to leave this store, get what you need, and leave.
Totally. So we shopped at Umomo. We got a bunch of bowls and plates and all that stuff. But I have to talk about this one thing. I don't know if it's appropriate.
I know where you're going.
So, Umomo is just like any amazing, well, it's not like any amazing dollar store. It's just a whole level up from that. But there's a whole section for cosmetics. And masks and face masks. And Heather and I found these lip masks, and I guess you put it on your lips for, I don't know how long, Heather. I can't remember.
10 minutes or something.
10 minutes or something.
Yeah.
And you get plump lips or something. Like, I haven't tried mine yet. Have you tried yours?
I did try one. I bought two and I tried one, and honestly I didn't feel there was any, like, I didn't feel anything from it. And I've had face masks that I've really loved. Not this one.
Right.
Lip stuff when we're wearing masks all the time. I'm going to come at this on the opposition.
We still have to look in the mirror.
You still have dry lips.
Oh,
Don't
it's
you?
to help the dry lip?
Yes, it's moisturizing.
It's moisture. It's
Oh, I thought it was to like plump your lips and make you
No,
look
no, it's not
all
giving you those lips. No.
no.
fancy lips.
But the funny thing about these products is that a lot of them have Japanese instructions in them. And the nice thing about Japanese instructions is that they come with pictures. So we turned it to the back and we looked at the picture instruction and it said, to place it on your lips for 10 minutes, blah, blah, blah. But you can also place it on your nipples. And I'm not sure what it's supposed to do to your nipples.
Moisture.
Moisturized nipples. And I'm not sure if I should try the lip mask first. And then maybe I should go. If it works, I'll go back and I'll get a pair.
I didn't try that. I only did the lips.
Right.
I would want to test the allergic reaction first because I don't know. Well, I don't know what would be worse to have the allergic reaction on your face or your nipples.
Well, both are masked anyway when you go outside. So
there you go. Matter. We cover both of them up. Nobody knows.
It was quite funny. You expect like different things than what you see, but that was a little more unusual than I would like. I was a little surprised. Yeah. It was good. It was good. And Sarah was looking at all the packages to make sure she got the one because they had a sticker over top and she didn't want the ones that the sticker covered the little nipple picture because she wanted to be able to show people the picture.
I took a picture and I sent it to you, Erin.
Yeah, I didn't understand it. You bought something for your cosmetic stuff at the store, like the congratulations. I didn't really open it up.
Yeah,
so fun.
Who'll be laughing when I have moisturized nipples?
Well, if your text ever starts with, "Hey, so this morning my nipples," I'm just not gonna like just gonna delete that line of text.
Oh boy.
You can count me out then.
Oh boy.
Maybe we should get back to food here.
Okay. Well, I'm not making anything Japanese, but I am going to make something French. And I feel like the French are also very free and open and probably would use the nipple masks. So I think we're right in line with that.
Because they embrace their body.
They embrace it, yes.
And they also embrace their cuisine, which is absolutely delicious.
I hope it will be delicious. First of all, let me tell you, I recently got a French cookbook called Bisous et Brioche, which is by Laura Bradbury and Rebecca Wellman. And it says it is classic French recipes and family favorites from a life in France.
Can I say I'm immediately intimidated just by reading this cover because I have no idea how to say it.
Bisous et brioche. Brioche is a type of bread, and bisous is like kisses or kind of affection.
Okay. Speaking of lip masks. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Bisous. Okay. The reason I bought this book is because I'm a fan of Laura Bradbury, one of the authors. She is a writer, and she's written a series of memoirs about her life in France. She's Canadian from Vancouver Island. And just after she graduated high school, she went on an exchange. She thought she was going to go to Belgium. The Rotary Club sent her to France. She ended up meeting the man she would eventually marry. They had all these adventures and bought property there and renovated it with all sorts of mishaps and fun things happening. And so her grape series, it's called, of memoirs, is just really charming and fun to read. And
love it.
All through it is the food.
Right.
The French, as she first arrives as a 17-year-old, and she's like, what is this? Her first time eating escargot and like all kinds of things where she was introduced to all this French food.
Neat.
Some of it in restaurant settings, a lot of it homemade at her host family and then at her future husband's family. Of course, everybody's an amazing home cook.
Oh,
and they all make all this amazing stuff. And just the way she describes the food just makes you want to eat.
What a fantastic, authentic way to experience the food by living in someone's home like that.
Mm-hmm.
Very
totally.
Cool.
What I'm going to make is Gougeres, which is described as pillowy cheese spiked puff. So
Oh,
I'll just tell you how Laura described it. My friend Laura, she's going to think I'm some crazy stalker person because I follow her on Instagram and I think she just seems like a really cool person. And I
that's
think we
okay,
would
Heather.
all hang out together.
I
So
think
I'm
we
always
all do that to somebody.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, my friend Laura tells me.
I was gonna say we never talk about strangers and from their first name like we know them.
No, totally not.
Hi, Roy Choi.
It's fine, Laura. Don't worry. Okay. I'm not a crazy person. All right. So Laura tells me it's not complicated, but it does take a certain coup de main to know when they're ready to bake. And I translated coup de main, and I believe it's like helping hand. So I don't understand. But anyway, I think there's a trick to recognizing when the dough is right.
Okay.
To go in the
Tips
oven.
and tricks.
Is this a rising yeasty proofing?
It is not.
Oh, I was all excited that you were getting caught up in our business.
No, but this, I did a little Googling, of course, because I wanted to learn a bit more about Gougeres. And it turns out it is a choux pastry. Are
Okay.
you familiar with a choux pastry?
Yes.
No.
Yes. Oh,
Okay.
no.
So a choux pastry.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to back the train up. Please educate me.
So in French, a choux is essentially translates to a cabbage pastry. Choux is a cabbage. And it's called that because the way it kind of puffs up, it can take the shape kind of like a little head of cabbage, I guess. Kind of an odd name, but anyway. So choux pastry does not have a rising agent. Instead, it uses high moisture content to create steam during cooking, which puffs the pastry.
Oh, I had no idea.
Me either.
Interesting.
What?
And when I picked the recipe, I didn't know it was the fancy choux pastry.
Yeah.
Laura didn't tell me. So she didn't explain that part. Okay.
You would never guess that, Erin, if you haven't seen a choux pastry. If you have seen one, you would never guess that it doesn't have a rising agent in it.
No, and I've never seen one, but the way you described it is scrambling my brain a bit. So
Okay, so
go further.
you have seen a choux pastry.
Yeah, I think you have.
Choux pastry is what you make churros, cream puffs. You know,
Cream
it's like a
puffs,
little puff that's hollow in the middle because the steam sort of puffs it up.
I've never made one though.
Sarah, can you think of something else?
Yeah, no, I'm thinking cream puffs or anything with a filling in it. Sometimes during Christmas, some people like to make a choux pastry Christmas tree.
Oh, it's like a tower. What's that thing called? The croquembouche.
That's it.
Croquembouche or something?
Yeah, yeah.
It's like a tower of all these poofs and there's caramel or something all over, or honey on it or something. I don't know. It's like craziness.
You know, I've always wanted to try a choux pastry, so I'm really interested to, because I love cream puffs. So
it's a cheese puff.
Sounds even
that
better.
That sounds way more attractive than any sort of sweet one.
And it's along the same lines, apparently, similar to a like a Yorkshire pudding, except the pudding goes in a cup, like in a tray. Muffin tin or something.
Okay, yeah.
Because it's hollowed out in the middle when you pop it out. Okay, so and the way these are cooked is first on the stove. And this was a part when I first got the book and I was reading it and I said, you guys, what kind of recipe is this? I don't understand.
Okay, this is that recipe.
Yeah, so you boil water and fat. So in this case, the water, butter, you add in salt and nutmeg and you boil that. Then you take it off the heat and you put in your flour. Sorry, I got a cat over here. All right, Paco, hello. So you take it out, you put in your flour, and then you return it to the heat and you keep mixing it until it forms a ball.
Interesting. Okay.
Dough.
That sounds like Play-Doh.
Yes, exactly. Remember we talked about this with the empanada.
But empanada was in hot water, though. This water will still be hot when you put the flour
boiling.
in, right?
This is a bit different.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then you put the ball of dough. She says just to stir, but I've read other things that say it's better to use a mixer. That might be helpful. So I'm going to go with whatever's most helpful.
Okay.
I'm going to put it in my mixer, and then you add one egg at a time. This was the part that had me kind of confused. Like, how do you stir an egg into a ball of dough? But I'm guessing it's softer than what I was picturing.
It's more like cookie dough like rather than yeasty dough. Like, oh, interesting.
And it's important that the temperature of that dough, so the egg can be blended into it. Like, you don't want it too hot when you put your eggs in.
Right. You don't want it to cook, I guess.
And then when that's all done, you should be able to put it into a pastry bag. So it is not a ball anymore, like a Play-Doh kind of ball. Like it's not a dough ball anymore. It's somewhere between a dough and a batter.
Yeah.
And you put that into a pastry bag. That's how you get those little balls, right? You squeeze them out onto your tray.
Nice.
Wow.
And then you bake them.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, the science around that is the initial cooking with the flour and the water paste rapidly hydrates and gelatinizes the starch in the flour.
Okay.
So it kind of swells up like really quick. That's the reason with the hot water. You put your eggs in, which has more water and egg whites.
Right.
Then you're baking that and that steams up. The outside is
Right.
going to be a little bit crispy because it's got the fat content.
Right. This sounds good.
And then you can put in whatever. You put in cheese. And so her recommendation is, Emmentaler or Gruyere cheese. So you grate that up.
Okay.
You can put any kind, apparently cheddar or whatever kind of cheese you like. And then grate that up and kind of work it into it with your hands before you put it in the pastry bag. And
so the cheese is in the batter.
It's an appetizer, essentially. So it's like a little cheesy pastry. And they typically would eat it with when they have a drink, like a aperitif. They have their little pastries and
yum.
a traditional sort of snack or appetizer. So
sounds good.
Oh, that sounds delicious. You could do that with you could do that on the side of a meal instead of bread. Like with a stew.
Yeah, why not?
Something?
Like a
Wouldn't
cheese
that
bun.
be tasty?
How long are you supposed to bake this for, and at what heat?
Okay, so 400 degrees Fahrenheit for 16 to 18 minutes.
Oh, that's not bad. Okay.
So she claims her husband makes the absolute best Gougeres in the world. I won't ever be able to compare unless they invite me to their house.
Yeah.
Which they might. They might after this. You never know.
Oh.
Yeah, I think so.
We're just waiting for the, vaccine thing to kick in, and then you'll be over there.
Yeah. So perhaps she will invite me over and we can compare. Frank. Hi, Frank. You and I can compare our Gougeres. We'll see who's are better. Yeah. Maybe I'll be the new crowned queen of Gougeres. No, I doubt it, but I'm excited to make them and to see. Yeah. Somehow I managed to find myself another particular sort of French recipe.
But you know what? It doesn't sound as complicated, I think. No. Until we hear what happens in the next half of this recording.
Yeah, it could all go sideways, but let's hope not, because all the stuff that you just described, as intimidated as I feel right now from all of that, the French and the new techniques, that sounds delicious. I would love to.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so glad you're taking this for a spin.
Well, we'll see. I'll test it out, and I will definitely give you samples.
Yes.
And
thank you.
We'll see. I've never etten one either. So
no.
I've never had a savory one. Yeah.
Yeah. I've never had a savory choux pastry. So, and never made a choux pastry. So
I just learned about them today. So
trust me, Google it. You'll know it. I think.
Yeah. You'll find
like
out.
Bao story. I've never had a bao. Now that I think back on that date, like you were sitting right next to me during dim sum when you were eating bao. So I think that's why I was so confused about the whole thing. I was like, what? Was I not there?
Did you just pretend to eat it and like stuffed it under your chair? Or?
Just gave it to the kids.
I didn't like it. I just
finish this up for me. They just walked from my mind. I don't know. When you started describing them, I don't know. I think because I looked at the fancy ones, I wasn't really sure what the real ones look like.
Yeah.
And so I've had those like in an airport before. They were terrible, but like I just forgot.
Yeah.
It was an honest mistake.
Yeah. So Heather, I'm really looking forward to this. So you let me know when they're coming over, because then I will get my drink ready to eat it with.
Yes, you need your aperitif.
Can we'll go sit down at a park bench just below your house. Yeah. And when they come out of the oven, you just skip down the block.
You have to skip. Did you hear that? You have to skip to us.
I will skip. You have to bring the drinks though. I don't trust myself to skip with the snacks and the drinks.
All right,
no,
deal.
we wouldn't want anything to happen to the snacks.
You bring the drinks. I will skip on down with the snacks. All right. Sounds good. Join us after the break to find out how it goes.
I look forward to it.
Oui. Look at you speaking French.
I know, I'm so good.
A choux pastry batter is used to make all sorts of things. Profiterole, croquembouche, eclair, beignet, crullers, churros, and I've probably just mispronounced all of them. But don't worry about it. However you say it, just make the choux pastry. You'll love it.
This episode of Three Kitchens is brought to you by the Alberta Association of Optometrists, proudly celebrating a century of caring for Albertans.
It happens. Many people don't call their optometrist first for urgent eye care when they need it. From spring cleaning mishaps to winter eye infections, if you or your family have an eye emergency, doctors of optometry are trained to diagnose, treat, and prescribe medications. No referral necessary. And just a reminder, Alberta Health coverage is available towards your urgent eye care appointment. To find an optometrist in your area, visit optometrists.ab.ca.
The Alberta Association of Optometrists represents almost 800 doctors of optometry in over 80 communities across the province. Members are highly trained, regulated health professionals who provide primary eye health and vision care to Albertans. Learn more at optometrist.ab.ca.
Welcome back to Three Kitchens. So, Heather, how did you're going to have to pronounce this one for me again.
Let's just clarify. I need to just say that I think I've been saying it wrong the entire time. And pardonnez-moi, s'il vous plaît, our French-speaking listeners. I think I've been really gouging this word. Okay, I believe it's Gougeres. And now that I've said it once, I feel like I should just say cheese puff the rest of the time so that I don't just keep ruining this lovely word. Okay.
So how did the Gougeres turn out?
The Gougeres. Oh, crap. I said I was only going to say it once and now I've said it again.
That cheese puff.
Lovely little puff of cheese. Turned out great. It was surprisingly easy for something that I was quite concerned would be difficult.
Mm-hmm.
I thought they turned out great. You guys had them.
Oh,
you liked them?
I have to give you double credit because not only did you make a completely foreign French recipe that's a pastry, but you did it while your kids were at home and you were homeschooling. You were like, oh, I'm just going to whip these up while you're schooling kids. Amazing.
Somehow it worked out.
So I'm just curious because you gave us a few, mm-hmm. As in I wanted more. They were really yummy. Do they make a lot?
Laura's recipe says makes about 30. And I think it was about less. It was less than that. It might have been about 2 dozen, maybe 25.
Okay.
But it probably depends on how big you make them because you're piping them out. It's not an exact measurement. A couple of things I found really helpful. So just to refresh your memory, you cook on the stove, you boil your water and your fat. So in this case, butter. Then you mix in your flour. You put it back on the heat and you keep stirring and it forms like a ball. So you have sort of a ball of dough.
Okay.
And then the instructions say to add the eggs one at a time, stirring into the ball of dough. And I thought, how the heck do you stir an egg into a ball of dough? Because I was picturing it like a bread dough. And really, it's not really like that. So something I found helpful was I think it's a blog. Is it a blog or a website? Called Serious Eats. Have you guys ever seen Serious Eats? Yeah. So they go and do the research. They break it down. They test out the recipes. They tell you the science behind stuff. And super helpful in this case for choux pastry. If you ever want to make choux pastry, look it up on Serious Eats. They have a how to make choux pastry tutorial. They suggest following precise temperatures, which I assume it really helped because they worked out. So when you've got that in your pot on the stove and you've got your ball, put your thermometer in there.
Okay.
And you want it between 165 to 175 Fahrenheit. Then you know it's ready to go to the mixing bowl. So in Laura's recipe, she just says stir the egg into it. Serious Eats says you can do that, but it's easier if you use a mixer.
What kind of thermometer are you using?
I use the meat one that I have that has the long cable that you can stick into it and keep it outside the oven. You know that one? But they say an instant read thermometer if you've got one of those. I don't.
No, I just have a meat thermometer at this point. But if you can use that, then
the one I've got worked great.
Excellent to know.
Once I got to the 165, I put it into my mixing bowl, and they suggest use the paddle to kind of stir it around a couple times. It breaks it up a bit and makes it a little cooler, because you need to cool it a little bit before you add those eggs in, so that you don't get an eggy, soupy mess of it. So you want it down to 145. So you were between 165, 175. You want to cool it to 145, and then add your eggs one at a time and make sure you mix them in completely. So there's no evidence of egg before you add the next.
And are they whole eggs?
4 whole eggs. Then it can sit at room temperature. It can wait. You don't have to use it immediately. So I did that. I did the temperatures very carefully.
Sorry, I got one question about the temperatures. What is the purpose of the 165 temperature? Is that so that everything incorporates and cooks in because you're basically cooking the flour, right?
Yes, you have to cook it so that the starch in the flour gelatinizes.
Okay.
That makes it strong enough to hold its shape.
Okay.
Like, I guess, depending on what kind of pastry you're making, it might not need to be hollow. But this, you want it hollow, right? So it needs to puff up and hold its shape.
Right.
And when you pipe it out, you don't want it to run out.
Okay.
There was some comparison to the Yorkshire pudding.
Right.
Which is a very similar, it puffs up, it's hollow in the middle, but it's like a batter. It's runny so you have to put it in a muffin tin.
Right.
It doesn't hold its shape because it hasn't been cooked initially for the starch to stick. That's all very scientific. Listen, I'm very scientific here.
That makes sense.
Yes, science moment. So there was a bit of history. With Serious Eats, they often look at, where did this originate? They said, whoever made this up? Just like we often ask, like, why did somebody come up with this recipe, especially with weird, finicky, very specific types of recipes like this, like the macaron. Sarah was like, who would come up with this and why? The Serious Eats people said the same thing. And apparently, dating back to medieval Europe, there was a thing called a hot water crust, which is still made, and that's how they make those British, like a meat pie, I guess.
Right.
So it's a different kind of crust. You couldn't just set it on the pan typically and fill it with stuff and it would hold it all together. Like, it moves and it kind of, that's why you need a plate to put it in usually. And then over time, this would have been like a choux pastry is adding eggs to a hot water crust, essentially.
Oh. Okay.
Which makes it hollow, I guess. It's like changes the structure of it by adding all that egg in there. I don't know. It's very confusing.
But it worked.
Yeah. And I kind of had a thought, because we were relating this to Play-Doh and how you cook the Play-Doh, but it's extremely salty. So do you think one day somebody was making a choux pastry, and like many of us have done before, you're going to add your salt in and you add too much and you're like, oh shit. And so then you started cooking it, and then you realized, it made like a dough that it wouldn't taste very good, but you could play with it. So they like gave it to their kid.
Yeah, maybe.
Let's color it.
And then it got gross. So they were like, well, I wonder if I could make that without the egg in it so that it didn't, mold as fast or whatever, So it's like mistakes that worked.
Very possible. Yes. All right. So I put it in my pastry bag, and then let's see what she says here. So you can also use a spoon or a pastry bag. Use a large round tip and dollop a tablespoon of dough on the sheet pan. For each one is about a tablespoon, 1 inch between, and sprinkle with sesame seeds if you like, which I did. And I also used Emmentaler cheese. Is that the right pronunciation of that? I don't know for sure.
Spell it if you can't see it.
I don't even want to spell it. I think you know what I mean. You can use any kind of cheese, grate it and put it into the I don't know if you call it a dough or a batter. It's somewhere in between
Right.
the two because it's runny, but it's not like.
So do we call it a datter or a bow?
They call it dough, but it's kind of a weird consistency.
Maybe it's a dough because it holds its shape, whereas batter just goes bleh.
Yeah, maybe you're right. Mine cooked for, she says 16 to 18 minutes. In typical Calgary fashion, it took a couple more minutes. It was 20 minutes. And then, according to Serious Eats, who suggested turning off your oven and opening the door crack, sticking your wooden spoon in the door and leaving it open that crack and let it sit for 30 minutes until the oven cools. Leave them in there. Don't touch them.
So it doesn't collapse?
Yeah, so they don't kind of fall if you bring them out too soon. Now, Laura didn't say that, so maybe hers, she doesn't do that and they work fine. But I did follow that instruction and they were great. Mine were not quite as crispy, I think, on the outside because everything said to be careful not to over bake. I was a little concerned about over baking them, but I think I could have baked them just a little bit longer to brown them a little bit more on top. Right. Make them just a little crispier on the outside.
Okay.
And then maybe they would have held up better. Like the next day, it was more like a little bun. It was kind of soft, which is still tasty.
Still
and
good, right?
Still gobbled them up, but it wasn't quite the same. I would say if you're going to make them right before you want to eat them.
Based on what you said, you could do that. Was it like one tray of them that you made?
I had 2 trays, but I put them in at the same time, which normally I don't do in my oven because I find like one sheet of cookies works better than having 2 sheets of something. But I just thought, well, I'm going to put them both in there, and it worked just fine.
Oh, excellent.
Which is good because otherwise I would have had to then take them out, reheat my oven to do the second sheet because I've now let it cool down. Right?
Yeah, that's a lot of patience.
So you said you left them in the oven for a little longer. How did you know that they were not done at that point? Like, how did you know to go longer? Or how did you know when they were done?
I was waiting to see them brown a little bit on top.
Okay, that's a good indicator.
Yeah, 20 minutes was good, but I think I could have left them a minute or 2 longer and just to see if they'd be a little crispier. I don't know.
When you piped it out, your tablespoon, how much did it expand from that sort of like, what was the size of your dollop?
So I've got a little picture. They didn't get a lot bigger. They look kind of like the shape of a little, they kind of swirled a little bit when they came out. And this, you remember, choux pastry means cabbage.
Right.
Named for the fact that sometimes when they puff up, they take the shape of a little head of cabbage, kind of. They puffed up a little bit, maybe like 50% bigger. They don't spread out. They didn't. I don't think they spread out at all, really.
Oh, okay, that's what I was kind of wondering.
Mostly
about.
up and hollow. Nice. Remember, because they have to get taller and hollow in the middle.
They were so good, so good, so good.
Yeah, you delivered them and they were still kind of warm in the bag. I unfortunately had to share with my kids.
Oh no.
But they were gone in a matter of minutes, and the kids thought they were amazing. And it was so light and yeah, it could have had a bit more crisp. I totally agree. The outside could be crispier, but it was still, I loved that cheese flavor with that dough. I don't know how to describe it. It was really good. It just kind of like melted away as you chewed it. I don't know. It was really great. I really enjoyed those. I would like to try and make them myself. I mean, you made it seem so easy.
Like I said, they were surprisingly easy for something that I thought would be a little bit tricky. Really came together. And I don't know if it was because I was carefully watching those temperatures or if the stars just aligned. I don't know.
You're now the French pastry master.
I wouldn't say that. This is the only pastry. Remember, the macarons were not pastry. That was a meringue. That's a different beast.
Oh, yeah.
These are much easier, honestly, than macarons. I'd say anybody, if you want to try them, I encourage you because it really was simple. And really, I mean, they say this is like an appy.
Mm-hmm.
that you have with a drink before dinner. And I would say you could easily have it that way as a snack, or like Erin, you said, have it next to like soup or something, like in place of bread with your dinner.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be totally
Yeah, I didn't
yummy.
even wait to make a drink to have them. They were so good.
No,
So
me either.
delicious. Yeah. So do you think when you make another batch, do you think you would you ever double this? Because I could eat a whole four trays of this easily.
Yeah.
Would that be
Maybe.
easy, or would you make it into like individual batches?
You certainly could, because it's not so finicky that you can leave the dough sitting on the counter until you use it.
Right.
So you have some time. It's not like you have to hurry up, like again, the macaron where it was like, oh, don't leave it sit out too long.
Right. Okay.
The only thing I would say is make what you're going to eat. Unless I just need to figure out the best way to reheat them so that they're a little bit crispy.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. I would think one batch would be good for like your family to have with dinner or whatever. That's plenty, I would think. And now we know how to make choux pastry. We can make all those other things with choux pastry. You can make
with chocolate in it,
or
or
the croquembouche or whatever, or like
we
can make all the things with choux pastry now.
I kind of like that these are warm and savory, because I find the sweet and cold cream puffs, it's kind of cold and it doesn't maintain that crispiness on the outside. I kind of liked that it had a little bit of crisp to it, and like you said, you could even do more. It was
a choux pastry is some like churros are made with choux pastry. They're just fried instead of. Yeah. So you'd pipe it differently with a different, you'd pipe that long tube and you would deep fry it and then put your cinnamon sugar or whatever on it.
Right. When are you making those?
I'm not so confident with deep frying.
I love that you taught me about this choux pastry.
I think I kind of screwed up the science of it. So if anybody really cares about the gluten and the science and how that works, maybe go and do a little reading, because I don't think that I was quite clear on that, and I didn't take great notes. So I apologize if anybody was looking for that specifically. All I know is it's actually quite easy. They're tasty and totally worth making, and you'll impress somebody who comes over for dinner or whatever. If you're going to a picnic or barbecue, whip up some of those, take them along, and you'll impress everybody with your lovely little cheesy puffs.
Yeah. And you found them so easy that you're going to make another batch probably today, right?
You know what? I might. I said that earlier because I think I'm going to do a beef stew for dinner, and I just might do. I was thinking doing with cheddar and try that out.
Why not? Yeah,
because I ate all the other cheese. I ate all that Emmentaler that I love so much.
Yeah.
So now I need to use a different cheese. And I would try like herbs or kind of like with your focaccia when you were talking about putting sage or rosemary or whatever. I think that would be great. This just had a little bit of nutmeg. I didn't really taste it in puff. I don't know if you guys did.
No, I ate it. I scarfed it down.
Yeah, it's apparently kind of traditional to have the nutmeg with the cheese.
Oh,
but I didn't really taste it, but I think it would be fun to try some other flavors or garlic. Do a garlic cheese puff or something.
Ooh,
I like that.
With some parsley.
Yeah, that was a winner for sure.
It sounded so easy. They were super delicious. Why not? And
exactly,
you can impress everyone when you learn how to say the word and say, I made Gougeres.
Even if all you say is you made choux pastry.
Yeah.
Pâte de choux. French.
There we go.
I probably just screwed that up too. I'm very sorry. Very sorry to all those French listeners.
We'll learn our second official language eventually.
I know. That's what feels so bad, is that we are Canadian and we don't know how to pronounce these French things. And I did at one time know a fair bit of French after high school, and it's kind of just gone away.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never knew any French, so I'm I'm the worst.
But
Sorry.
You've got the Spanish pronunciation pretty.
I've got more Spanish down, but I should have more French, but
we'll work on it. We'll make it one of our missions. Our mission. We need a mission statement, and part of it is pronouncing recipe names.
That just means we have to make more French food, or you have to make more French food, and I have to eat it and then learn how to pronounce it. So that is your task.
And I will take it on because I've got this beautiful book, Bisous et Brioche. I recommend. I have now made, in addition to the Gougeres, I have made the bourguignon with the egg noodles. I made my own egg noodles from this cookbook as well.
Yeah.
That I had with the bourguignon. So I recommend the book, and I will keep making stuff out of it and sharing with you, and we'll see what else we can mispronounce, but make lovely food. That's right. All right. Thank you once again for joining us. And
thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Thank you for culturing us.
Such as it is. All right. We'll catch you next time.
Okay. Sounds good.
Bye. And now for the fine print. You can find recipe information and photos on Instagram and Facebook at 3 Kitchens Podcast. Why don't you leave us a comment and give us ideas for future episodes? We'd love to hear from you. And of course, if you'd like and subscribe and follow, all of those things help other people find us.
Might be hard to say, but easy to eat. No matter what you call it, it's still gonna taste good.